You know that moment when your spouse walks in, drops their gear, and says, I'm fine, but you know they're not? Yeah, that's the moment right there. That's where we're going today. My name is Amy Cortez, and this is Code 44. I'm a mother of two and a spouse of a law enforcement officer who has been serving for over 30 years. This podcast is designed to help spouses and families recognize the signs before the line breaks. Back in episode 1, we talked about, quote, I'm fine, and what it really means. And in episode 2, we started breaking down the stigma, the wall of silence that keeps so many of us hurting alone. And in episode 3, we talked about daily incidents and how they compound. Today, we're going to get practical. We're going to talk about something that helped Mike and me, something really simple but powerful, something we called code word. Now, let me pause for a second. This isn't just about our law enforcement officers. We have bad days too. Sometimes the kids are melting down, the house is very chaotic, and you've had your own stress. So when I talk about our law enforcement officers' trauma, you're going to hear me refer to them as Leos. It's not to say our stress doesn't matter. It's just that they carry a different kind of weight. It's kind of like an invisible armor, mental, emotional, and sometimes even spiritual. The job asks them to stay strong, to stay alert and in control, even when they're faced with something so traumatic. And here's something I learned that really opened my eyes. At a mental health training that Mike was leading, he shared that many officers enter their profession with some level of childhood trauma already in their story, long before they got their badge. Sometimes those things shape them and push them towards the law enforcement field. So when we think about stress, we're not just talking about one source for them in a lot of cases. We're talking about layers, childhood trauma, daily exposure to violence, the constant hypervigilance, and all that it compounds. That's why it's so important that we, as spouses and family members, build a community, a network that brings these things into the light. Because silence isn't strength, silence is actually isolation. And isolation is what breaks too many families. I read an analogy that really stuck with me. It was of a wife who was telling a story about her husband. She said he went to breakfast with his buddies. He had his favorite omelet and he saved just a few crumbs in a napkin. Then he went to lunch, had his favorite steak dinner and a salad, and had just a few crumbs left over and brought them home as well. And when he came home that night, he handed those crumbs to the family. She said, that's what it feels like to live with him. We get the crumbs, and what's left after the job has taken so much. That hit me hard. Because I think a lot of us can relate at moments of our lives at feeling like that. But if you're listening to this podcast, I know you're not okay with the crumbs, and I'm not okay with crumbs. We want connection again. We want our spouse back. You want your family member back. And that's what this episode is all about, building that bridge to bring them back home. I'm sharing something today that really helped Mike and me. Now, let me say first, I don't pretend to have all the answers. We've tried a lot of things, and some have worked and some didn't. What worked for us might not exactly work for you in the same way. Every relationship's different. Every home dynamic is different. and every officer is different. But here's one of the things that we found helpful for us to make that transition from his shift to our home. And it's powerful, but it's very simple. It's what we call code word. Yep, you heard me right. A code word. I actually learned this idea when our oldest daughter was in junior high. You know, those teenage years, a whole different kind of stress. Probably one that needs a separate podcast. But I read about creating a code word with your kids, a secret phrase that they could use if they ever felt unsafe in a situation. For us, we used the phrase, "How is Callie?" Callie was our cat. So if she texted me or called and said that phrase, I know she needed out of a situation. So no questions asked. I jumped in the vehicle and I went and got her. That same concept worked beautifully for Mike and I as adults. So as Mike was coming home and saying, things are fine, only to realize they weren't, or for him to come home and be quiet or grumpy or just off. You know what I mean when I say off. It's like the atmosphere around them is just not right. So we decided to implement a code word. Maybe for you, it could be a code word or a code phrase, or even an object that you place out on the table or cupboard. You see, what we've been talking a lot about in our past episodes are the tough situations that our Leos can be involved. And communication can be really difficult in that time. There are situations where they can't share the details of what's happening because it's under investigation. It might be that they cannot share because it's just raw and their words just don't come to them. Or maybe the act of the word hitting the air is just too much in that moment. So we came up with code word. It allowed Mike to communicate with me in a text message or a quick call when he was on his way home, or that he could say when I asked about his day. It might sound silly, but us getting real and understanding that we cannot expect our loved ones in this occupation to openly say, hey, guess what? I'm in a black hole. I can't find my way out and I need help. Because asking for help and explaining why they need help is just too much. It's too vulnerable. It just doesn't feel acceptable to them to say the words because they feel that they're supposed to have it all pulled together. They're trained in crises. They have to remain calm. They have to move the emotion down and respond to what's in front of them. So for us, our code word is just bad day. Now, here's the rule. He can't use it loosely and he can't use it daily. It's only when he truly needs space, when words are just too heavy, that he can't say. But here's the other part. You see, when he uses the word code word, the rule is, I ask no question. I had to learn this the hard way. When Mike uses code word, my job isn't to fix it. It's not to ask 20 questions. My job is to pause. Give him 30 minutes of quiet and grace. I'm not sure about you, but that's really hard for me. When my nature is to jump in, solve it, or ask 20 questions so that I know all the details. This definitely took some self-control on my part. Here's the next part. After 30 minutes, our commitment is that he gives me the Cliff Note version, not the full story, unless of course he needs to share it. But remember, those words have to hit the air eventually, but timing matters. So prior to code word, if Mike came home and was grumpy or reserved, or even if he said he had a not so great day, My first reaction went something like this. I'm sure you can relate. What happened? Who was involved? How bad was it? Does their family know? Who else responded? Were you first in the scene? What can I do? And it went on and on and on. Not because I was insensitive about the situation, but because I wanted to solve his pain. But what I quickly realized is that it pushed him deeper in a hole because now he needed to hide it from me because he didn't want to answer all of those questions. What I thought was helping him was actually isolating him more. So now I simply give him 30 minutes of peace to unpack what he needs to unpack with no questions asked. He doesn't have to explain it, at least not in the moment. Because as we discussed in episode 3, talk therapy is required. The words do have to hit the air. But when he initiates code word, my only response is, I'm sorry, honey, that you had to experience that. I'm going to say a prayer for you, and I'm going to ask that God gives you peace. What can I do for you in this moment? That's all I say. As spouses and family members, our goal is to recognize they are not okay after some things that they've seen and some days that they've had, even if they push it down and are hiding it. Our job is to respond with awareness that you need to help them with something, but now's not the time. And to support them with your presence, not with the pressure. So maybe tonight, after you've listened to this podcast, talk to your loved one about your code word, a word or a phrase or even an object, something that says, hey, I need a space for a minute. Silence is what's killing our loved ones. If we can create safe ways to talk, even through something as simple as a code word, we're opening a door before the crisis potentially knocks. Now, let's talk about what we might see. Those behavioral shifts that honestly sometimes make us say, what happened to the person I married? The things that can help you know when to use the code word. You see, code word can go both ways. As family of law enforcement, there are a lot of behavioral reactions that we might see. Personally, I used to normalize these, but I had to stop doing that. And I had to be more aware and actually take it less personally. Okay, so if Mike's watching, he's gonna say, honey, you still take it personal. And he's right. It does get personal for us as spouses. It's hard not to. So I will say, I try to be more aware that it's not personal. And here's the other thing. Sometimes as a spouse, we think they're just being jerks. They're moody. They're reserved. They're not as talkative. So if you're feeling any of those, I feel you and I see you. One big one is what I call a change in societal perception. Let's talk about what that means because I don't think that's something you're going to find in a textbook. Over time, officers start to see the world just a little bit different because of what they experience on the job. They see the worst of people, the lies, the pain, the danger, every single day. So their view of the world really shifts. At home, that might show up as your spouse becoming more guarded, more skeptical, even more cynical. They might avoid crowds. They might question other people's intentions or feel like no one outside the job really gets it. As their perception of society changes, it does change how they engage with the world and with us. They might pull back from social events. They might struggle to relax in public or seem disconnected from conversations that just used to be so easy. This doesn't mean that they stopped caring. It means their brain is trying to protect them from a world that now feels dangerous and unpredictable. As a spouse, it can feel like you're losing the person that you used to know. But understanding why that shift happened helps us respond in a more compassionate way instead of taking it personally. And listen, I have to laugh at what I just said because if I'm being honest, I'm still learning this myself. Let me share a quick story so you know I'm right there with you in this. Not above you, and I haven't learned how to solve all things. A few years ago, Mike and I were driving to Hilton Head with the girls, and Mike, bless him, he can go hours in complete silence. Not me. Long silence makes my skin crawl. My brain starts spinning on everything, and I start imagining everything under the sun. Sometimes my husband describes it as having 1,000 browsers open in my brain. So after what felt like an eternity to me, I blurted out, "Did you see that there was a shortage of avocados?" He simply said, "Nope," and went back to the silence. And I'm just going to be honest. I lost my temper a little bit. I took it personally. I thought, seriously? That's all you've got? But here's the truth. I had to remind myself, our spouse's silence is rarely about us. It's often that their nervous system is trying to step out of that hyper alert, hyper aware world they live in all day long. And none of us, absolutely none of us, handle that perfectly every time. So now that I've told on myself, let's talk about some other areas that I pay attention to. Loss of appetite. Ever notice them just moving things around their plate? Emotional outburst. Maybe snapping at the dog for barking or getting frustrated over something really small. It's not really about the dog and it's not about the barking. It potentially is a buildup of everything that they're carrying. Isolation, irritability, or trouble sleeping. Have you ever noticed that one? Well, if you notice these, you can gently say to them, "Hey, is this a code word moment?" You're not accusing them of anything. You're not forcing a situation. You're offering them a hand before they slip into that dark hole. You see, this goes both ways. As a spouse or family member, you can use the code word too if you're noticing they're having a bad day and they're not quite able to say it. If you need a break or if you're reaching your limit, I encourage you to say it. This is all about mutual respect and mental health. Our goal, to fight the stigma together and fight against the mental health that is so common in law enforcement and to get the communication going. Our hope and desire is that this type of communication early on, before it's a crisis, will get us onto a path where we're dealing with the stressors before they become emergencies. We can't fix what we don't talk about. And we can't talk about it if we don't feel safe. So maybe your next step in this, tonight, sit down with your spouse. Pick your code word. It could be storm, red light, or even Code 44. Whatever you choose, it means I'm not okay right now, but I still love you enough to tell you that. Because connection starts with awareness. And awareness leads to the conversation. And the conversation, that's how the healing begins. I want to add, if your loved one is so far in a deep hole and is already having suicidal thoughts, please get them help immediately. Because remember, their loneliness doesn't come from having no one to talk to. It comes from them not being able to communicate. If you've tried a code word or an idea like it, please join our community on social or message me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'd love to share your story with other spouses who might need it. I'm going to end us with a quick prayer. Lord, thank you for the men and women who wear the badge and for the families who carry the weight with them. Give us wisdom to see the signs, patience to listen, and the courage to speak life when silence feels easier. And Lord, help us create simple ways like code word to open the door to communication when words feel too heavy. Amen. Thank you for joining our episode today. I hope you found it to be beneficial. In the next episode, we're going to take this one step further. Once you and your spouse have a code word, who are the trusted people you can reach out to if you feel things are just a little heavier than you can carry alone? A mentor, a peer, a neutral friend, someone that you agree to ahead of time. You won't want to miss it.